What's good, YouTube? And welcome to me rolling out of bed to talk about the WCQ and a couple of new sets announced, absolutely wrecking the market. It almost feels like a ban list looking at some of this movement, and then other things are pretty interesting in how they didn't necessarily move, but did maintain at a high price. And the Discord did help me get a few picks that I would have missed. Shoutouts to y'all. The first one is Molcharmy Perulia. I definitely noticed this movement. Almost double in price from the 30s into the 60s and now settling around $58. The sales were going nuts thanks to the WCQ because it was really underestimated with the other Perulia on the horizon in 3 months, but we still have a full regional season to play, even with that looming August ban list, and Sutff being able to play through this to a good degree. It forces certain routes, and it did have a huge impact. And the giant card looked very nice with that foiling, by the way, not an addict. The quarter century secret rare also spiked up in price versus where it was selling at. You can see the market price of 122 versus now the low being 158, and sales even in that range as it went up in price. Now, the interesting one really treading water under the triple digit marks, mind you, despite a very impressive and dominant display at the WCQ, as well as new support on the horizon, is Sutff Engraver at 98. Now, why I bring that up is there is that looming August ban list where they said they want to see how things turned out. I can't see them hitting this directly, and I think that will spike this on up later, and people will still be playing the regional season, but you also have vendors coming back from the event, listing their cards, and we're going to see a very interesting week one develop for this as people either go, all right, I guess I'm playing, and a lot of duelists did show there's different ways to play, like with this in an Exodia deck of all things, and actually doing well at that event where they could have topped the regional easily with that kind of display at the WCQ. So I think the format's not as figured out as people thought, as well as this still being very, very dominant, which earns it its current price out of a booster that's like, I want to say it's around $80 a box right now, which is very successful, but not as high as I thought. I thought it would be nonstop up towards 90, kind of like Rise of the Duelist or something, but it's hanging in there. Now, what's really impressive about Sutff 2 is an archetype and engine. It's not a staple card or extra deck card in terms of the traditional form of like Triple Tactics Talent or Forbidden Droplet, and it's able to push this way, which Konami hasn't had in a while, which leads me to believe probably no direct hits on the ban list, but that's still speculation at best when we're talking about what Konami's gonna do. Now, we did see Fabled Lurie in here a lot, and there is now Terminal World 2 announced with Fabled and Dirac support. We'll get to Dirac later, but be aware this is way up in price from that. It's also got the announcement that, yeah, we're gonna get more Fabled cards, but I do want to say, with us getting that set eventually, we would hope for some key reprints. Right, Konami? Right? You want to cash in? Now, this is easily one of my biggest modern calls that was a no-brainer to me, but if we were headed towards a more tier 0 format with a lot of people playing one thing, Crossout Designator would see more play. The quarter century secret rare has spiked up towards $48 and quickly $50. Most of the sales are under that, but a couple start to graze in that range and upward. So be aware, this is moving. Ubel actually was dipping down a bit, but has gone back up as people saw the proof in the pudding from the WCQ. You can see some of those lower sales probably had some shipping tacked on, but now back above 50 towards 53 for Phantom Ubel. And then I didn't know the secret rare was this crazy hype. First editions for 70. I hadn't peeked in a little bit, but yeah, you do see some of them a bit lower than that, like 63 right there, 60s here, but the first editions are 60 and above for secret. Evil Hero Adusted Gold has multiple hype. There's murmurs of new evil support in the future maybe gonna happen, but then it's also being played for Infernoid, and then also being played apparently in Guardian Chimeras for the ability to go into Fiendsmith stuff through a combo line. So be aware that this has just so many different reasons it's being bought out and so many versions that were short printed that leave, I believe, very, very few options for a budget version, and even those are going out of quantity and up in price. So we're back to the time of talking about this card, but at least we're not talking about it being $70 and more bumping up towards $7-8, thankfully. Magical muskets are getting attention. It can be played with Fiendsmith. It's one of the original decks that was talked about that. Be aware a lot of these are lower in quantities and creeping up in price from people peeking in at the deck. Gimmick puppets definitely saw its time in the feature matches, rip Sam. And we see Gimmick Puppet Scissor Arms really going up. $20 lowest with sales in the range out of Number Hunters as a super rare. This is what happens when you don't get reprints for sometimes and you get new support. But yeah, Bisque Doll and so many other cards, Giant Grinder we already covered going up earlier, even the Gold Letter Rare, a lot of these down in quantities and up in prices. It's one of the decks you can play that you don't necessarily need to lend yourself fully towards Fiendsmith. Fantastical Dragon Phantasme. This is a card I would have completely missed. Apparently it was very hot in the room and people were buying out the quarter century secret rare in the room at the WCQ, and that has translated to sales rates after the event despite that downward sloping graph. Now tons and tons of sales, $12, $10. You can see it start to actually go up. Still available in that price range of about $11.50. But the graph barely tilts up here, and you can see it's starting to really push up in price. I'm more of a fan of the OG art personally, but that doesn't get that nice quarter century secret rare, so you might want to get that version of Phantasme you want sooner than later using that TCG player link in the description down below, costing you nothing extra to support the channel directly for the cards you'd already be buying. Also hot was Bestials with tons of play in the event. You might have even seen it towards the finals, and then not really much traction in either sales or down to quantities. Again, you might want to get yours sooner than later because it is seeing play. Maybe just a lot of people already have theirs though, which would make a lot of sense, but still get the ones that you want to be playing. Centurion, turns out it works with Whitewoods a bit, and we see this has been spiking in price, a little bit under my radar, and there's also new support for this deck coming. But yeah, way up in price for Primera, and you can see the sales are actually there to above $25. Chaos Ancient Gear Giant, man, an old meme page turned real in the WCQ where it absolutely smashed things. This only has one printing, but you can see the sales rate went absolutely nuts in the last couple of days from it actually seeing that play, and is towards $5 and quickly up from there where it was sitting around $3 to $4. Not the greatest spike in the world, but it does only have one printing for this card, super rare out of Raging Tempest, so ancient. The Exodia stuff got highlighted, and some of it went way up in price and some not so much. I'm actually surprised the Ankh, which is integral to the deck, I feel, is just chilling, not actually up in price, but other pieces are way up. Senjinjin, 34 listings, ultra rare, and it's $8, the quarter century secret rare on buyout mode. Shield of the Millennium Dynasty, sorry Ruxin, guess you can't pull this one. It is way up in price, $45 for the quarter century secret, only 40 listings for the ultra rare. And then yeah, there were I think a couple other things around the deck, but that was the main stuff. Memagul Master is up for the quarter century secret rare, and the ultras treading water around $5. So a lot of interesting things with Infinite Forbidden. I didn't mean to segue this early out of the WCQ. So jumping back, the Exodia feature match, super hype, interesting moves on the market around it. I'd probably get the Ankh because it's very key to the deck, but Sinjin, very loved card that holds all the Millennium items, and the Shield I feel like has become multiple parts of memes around things. And yeah, there's Exodia, the Unstoppable himself, not going that crazy on the Ultra at all. Very budget for himself, but other pieces of the deck making it way less budget. And then the quarter century secret rare, way lower on listings, not quite up in price yet. A couple more holding the line at 43 before it does start to spike up from there. Interesting also side note, the Yugi duel versus Exodia duel and all that did happen recorded at the WCQ, not live. I believe Dan Green was actually at like a Collecticon or something like that. But Shining Sarcophagus is getting attention again, way down in quantities and going way up in price, back towards $18. So just be aware, this is getting attention despite everything else going on, and I found that kind of interesting. Silo Hat Rabbit is way up in price for the quarter century secret rare full buyout mode right now. Again, remember, a lot of vendors haven't listed their stuff. They're coming back from the WCQ. They're getting it in the office today, so things can change throughout the day easily. I told you all with Player Brain, I felt like this card was a great pick, and a lot of people are talking about it that way. That doesn't necessarily mean it's going to pan out in full, yet at the same time, it has a lot of utility. The secret rare, very affordable for what it is, but people did go in on the quarter century secret rare, probably in that same line of thought of so many people talking about this card, and that being the highest rarity version. Mermail, the Atlantean support is real! And with that, we see Abyss Megalo and Abyss TS full buyout mode for their higher rarity versions. Check this out, like absolutely ridiculous. Up towards 60 for a first edition as the lowest, and actual sales in that range. Wow, people are going in. And this is one of the OG decks that used to be very expensive and still kind of was for high rarity, but people are reaching back around towards it. I told you all Neptibus was a penny stonk a long time ago, and here it goes, $5 plus for both versions, and it is on buyout mode, with those being its only printings and it being so integral towards just being a great card for those decks. Caius, the structure deck version even, is towards $15+. Edison really showed its hype at the WCQ. Over 400 duelists, basically a whole SJC's worth of amount of people were playing for just 3 giant cards. You gotta feel for that. Konami, do a little something with prize support for side events that are becoming main events on their own. But seriously, just crazy. The Ultimate Rare even has a big sale. Be aware Edison has that popularity. And then finally, WRECKS also got new support announced. We haven't seen the proof in the pudding, just the announcement. Full buyout mode, no near mints on market left. I don't know that, destroying your opponent's monsters by battle will be that integral to the deck in 2024, but we'll have to wait and see. Thanks for watching today's Market Watch. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Big thanks to the Discord for helping with a lot of the cards that I did not have on my radar necessarily. And yeah, if you look at the WCQ and then all the craziness about the hit, the reprint season, the ban list season, sorry, I stumble a little when I'm excited in the morning, or excited in general, but so many things are coming for Yu-Gi-Oh! That are exciting despite your Fiendsmith overlords that have a waifu card in a future set. There really are so many different ways to play Yu-Gi-Oh! And Edison's turnout, despite the huge WCQ turnout, Yu-Gi-Oh! Feels more popular than ever.